the excitement and the joy really comes in on the other side of that. So it's really the dread of it that's worse than the living it. So know that too, Mama. Welcome back. Happy spring.
Yay.
The weather's finally warming up. We are in yellow season, pollen season.
Yeah. So for any listeners that don't live in the South where we live. So when I moved here, pollen was something bees carried from flower to flower. Like that's all I knew of pollen.
Yeah.
I didn't actually experience myself being pollinated all the time. It's crazy here.
Yeah,
Ugh.
It is. But it means that summer's coming too.
I know. And I'm ready.
Me too. And our topic for today is kind of seasonal, but it's more of a season of life. So you and I have both prepared one child to go away to school.
Yes.
We have sent one off, and we're both preparing two more. I have a senior this year. You have a junior.
Mm-hmm.
And I've started thinking how great it would be for us to have a conversation around preparing our kids to transition successfully to college. And you may be saying, well, I don't have a college student. Well, you probably know somebody, or a high school student that's about to go to college, but you might know somebody. So share this episode with them because they will love these tips we have learned, and tips that we've also gotten from other people. Some things we've learned that might not work, but some things that when McKenna went to USC, they talked about in a parent orientation. So I want to talk about tips for the kid for transitioning and tips for mom for transitioning. Because whether you were a really involved parent or you were more of a hands-off parent, still a really big change in life. That's going to be a transition of some type, you know?
Yes. So. No, I love this topic. I just had a conversation yesterday to two moms that are about to send their first child off to college. So I think this is a great conversation because this time could be really overwhelming and miserable, or it could be really exciting. And some of that has to go with having these conversations ahead of time. So things so that you can put your mindset in the right place going forward with it, but also you feel prepared.
And it could feel overwhelming in one moment and exciting in one moment and miserable in one moment. Like it could be all of that combination of emotions and thoughts. So yeah, let's dig in. What are some things that you and Annalise did to help her transition from high school to college be smooth and successful?
Well, one of the things, I have to admit that Annalise is a pretty self-sufficient child. So I know that my transition may have looked, I talked to another mom way back when who had a son who didn't have any thoughts of preparation in his brain at all. So she had to do a little more prep work than what I had to do because Annalise she knows what she wants.
She was on it.
She was on it. But we had lots of conversations of what the transition was going to look like. And even how it's going to be super exciting, super scary. And there'll be times that you are feeling, I think both of us, moms and children, can feel like, what did we do? Or why did we make this decision? And there could be panic that came from it. So I wanted to go through and talk about those different things ahead of time with her so that she knew that you may have some emotions of doubt, because whenever you're making a big change,
right,
like a life-changing transition, doubt is a pretty natural thought process that can sneak in there. But being able to not let that turn into panic is the goal. So talking about roommate decisions, for example, that's a big one. And that's one that I've talked to several moms about ahead of time, because there will be people that will come to me and say, I don't really want them to room with anybody from their hometown because that could be really terrible. And yes, it could. Or it could be amazing. And they could be set up with a roommate And that may not go so well.
Right.
Or it could be amazing. See, what happens is when we start saying these things, we create a story ahead of time of how something could look. And then that's really unfortunate, because if we're looking for things to not go well, what's the saying? What you focus on, you'll find.
Right.
Then it goes that direction. So having a conversation about what is it like to live with someone else. You're used to having your own bedroom and sharing a bathroom with your sister, but you could leave your stuff out all over the place in the bathroom with your sister, and she may complain to you. But when you're sharing a bathroom with multiple girls or multiple boys, what does that mean when you're not cleaning your stuff up?
Right. And one of the things about picking the roommate, like you were saying, with cleanliness, if your kid thinks they want a room with their best friend from their hometown, and you say, you guys are best friends, but you are very different people, you may not get along well, bringing that up to them, like, your friend is very, very neat, and you tend not to be very neat and considerate of other people's stuff. Are you sure that's the person you'd want to room with? Or would you two want to both go to school together and choose other roommates, and then you can still be friends and do stuff with them, but pointing that out to your kid, because those dorms are small.
They are small.
And you have to be very considerate of other people's stuff.
And although your roommate, it doesn't have to be the person you're always with, you will have a considerable amount of time that you are sharing that space.
Yes.
So having those conversations about what is it like to live with other people, even breaking down what it was like when you started living with your husband in the beginning, how that's a transition. Sharing space with somebody is a transition.
Yeah.
So that was one thing that we definitely we talked about ahead of time, what that looks like, and the goods and bads of it, and having grace during that time is really important. I think another thing that's on high schoolers right now that I feel like is a little unfortunate is from even early on, middle school, they want you to pick your major.
Right. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy. And I don't know if all school districts do that, but yeah, that's a big thing here.
And so they're also, so when you head to college, now the pressure's on more. So I'll say also, Annalise changed what she went in doing, and I was very encouraging of the fact that early on you get your base classes done, but this is your time to take little classes here and there and make sure that you're heading in the direction that you want to go. And if you're not, it's okay. You need to be open to figuring that out in your first couple years, and not feeling like changing courses is a bad thing. If somebody comes in as a nursing student and their sophomore year, they decide that nursing's not for them, but they feel like they're already in too much because they've taken a number of science classes, they're just going to have to push it through. If they're not feeling called to be a nurse, nursing is a really hard profession to be in. I mean, nurses are amazing, but if their heart's not in it, that's hard. Same with teaching, for example. If somebody's going to school to be a teacher and then they decide that teaching is, all of a sudden they don't think that's where their passion is, to just keep going to be a teacher, then that's going to be a miserable teacher, which is not going to be good for the future of the students in their classroom.
Right.
So talking about being flexible with making decision changes in order to make the right decision for you, so that you're doing something that you really have an interest in. It lights a fire in you. Ultimately, that's what we want. But letting them know that there is flexibility in there.
Yeah, and that could help that transition be easier, knowing, okay, I'm going into this, but I'm not stuck there.
I'm not locked in.
Yeah. One of the tips that came from the USC parent orientation, and I highly recommend if the school your kid's going to has orientation, go to all the sessions, because I went to the parent one. So many parents didn't attend, and I wish I could have recorded it. It was fantastic. She was wonderful, great tips. One of the things she said, though, was plan your transition day. Plan move-in day. Who's going to go? So you know that ahead of time. And the school's kind of, with the situation as it is right now, is they're kind of making that decision. Plan who's going to go, but also say your goodbyes before you leave the house or before you leave the hotel room if you're out of town. And this was such a great tip because as a mom in all the movies, what do you see? The mom and the dad and all the siblings moving the kid into the dorm, and then the mom's crying and hugging him like it's the Hallmark movie. Like that's the expectation. And she said, don't cry when you leave. It's awkward for the kid because usually other students are around and they're like, my mom's crying, my dad's crying. It makes them feel insecure a little bit and uncertain. Like, why are you tearing up over this? Don't give all the parent advice right there as you're trying to get out the door, which is a tendency like, oh, did I tell you need to check your oil or, or whatever, like, or check your tires. No, you think of everything you want to tell your kid in advance and tell them well before they move. Or be quiet and just wait a while before you start giving all that parental advice. But she said, say your goodbyes and talk with your student. Okay, I'm going to say goodbyes now. I might tear up. I'm going to hug you now, the big goodbyes. So then when we say goodbye, we're just going to say goodbye and we're just going to leave.
I think that's great advice. And another thing I want to add to that is take the cues from your child on what they need, not what you need.
Yes.
So again, you talk about this we've created this image of what it's going to look like. I'm going to set something out.
It's what we've seen too.
I'm going to go in and I'm going to decorate their whole room for them and make sure their pillows are all perfectly aligned.
Right.
And so in my experience of dropping Annalise off, I thought I would help her put her room together more. I thought that, but I picked up on the cues that she was that she was anxious as any new student would be moving in, and doing those things of getting her room in order the way she wanted it was bringing calm to her. It was creating her space.
Yes.
So when I started seeing that she didn't need me to create her space for her, she needed to create her own space, and that was bringing her some calm into the situation. I knew it was time for me to step out. Now, if I would have sat in the ideals of, but wait a minute, I thought I was going to do all of these things and then we were going to go out for ice cream afterwards.
Right.
Then I wouldn't, it would have taken longer for her to be able to find some of her own peace, because that was what was bringing her peace.
Right.
So I think this little movie that we have in our head, I think that's one thing we need to throw out altogether, because that's just going to set us up with disappointment if we stick there.
Yes, absolutely. And I like what you said about taking cues, because McKenna was a little bit the opposite. Her dorm room was big and it was really pretty, but it just was really strangely set up with where the electrical outlets were. And so we took everything in. And then I thought she would probably want to set it up more. And she even said, I don't even know how to plug in my coffee maker. I was like, oh, yeah, we have a problem here. So we ended up spending a little more time trying to troubleshoot some of those types of situations, which we hadn't planned on doing. I mean, we went in and decorated and everything, but I thought she would want to do the little setups. But so same thing, like you had to take the cue, but it was in the opposite direction. Another thing is, this was a great tip from a college student when I asked her, okay, tell me the things I need to know as a mom before my kid goes to school, before McKenna goes to school. And she said, make a decision and you guys need to talk about what the communication is going to look like before you go to school. So her mom wasn't messaging her or calling her because she was trying to give her space. And she wasn't calling her mom because she thought, I guess my mom doesn't want to talk to me. And they were both having hurt feelings and feeling sad and lonely, but not calling each other. And it went for a couple of weeks, I think. And I thought, oh, that is fantastic, because you could see how that could easily happen. And So because she had said that, McKenna and I had some conversations around it, but we even had to revisit those conversations after she went to school because we weren't hearing from her. And I said, your sisters are missing you and you're not calling and we just want to know you're okay. And she said, I'm sorry I haven't been calling you. I only want to text right now because I'm trying really hard to embrace my life at college. And when I talk to you, it kind of makes me feel lonely. Or to Kelsey or Sally. And I was like, oh man, I can totally respect that and I get that. And so she was having to do what we had told her to do. Get out, go to the functions. I know it's going to feel awkward. You might not know anybody, but you need to get out of your room and do that. And she was trying to embrace moving into this new community, and having phone calls from everybody at home every day was not helping that. So we gave her some time and explained it to her sisters too. I think Sally was hurt by it, but she and Kelsey were really close, and Kelsey was really hurt by it. So being able to understand where she was coming from and then communicate that back home was helpful. Another tip they had, which I thought was fantastic, was when your kid comes home for Thanksgiving, do whatever it is you've always done, because that's what they want. If you have Thanksgiving Day lunch sitting around on the couch on paper plates, that's what your kid wants. If you have Thanksgiving lunch with the whole family and this full formal dining room table and this big spread, that's what your kid wants. So don't try to make it such a big deal when they come home for holidays that they feel uncomfortable in their own house. And when they did the parent orientation, she was speaking, but she had students there. Every one of them said that we're talking about that experience. They hated going home because of that. Because when they did go home, it was like so over the top, and they were just like flooded with all this attention, and it didn't feel like home. And I thought that was a great tip too.
I remembered that one from you when you told me that. So
Yeah.
you and I had a conversation after you did the orientation, and that one has stuck with me. And that one I've had to fight against. That one's really a hard one.
It is.
Because you almost feel like when they come home, it should be like a celebration.
Yes.
When all they really want is maybe Netflix in their bed.
And their favorite home-cooked meal.
Yes.
And their laundry done.
Yes. I mean, it really, they want to feel at home. And so if you're saying, well, we're going to invite all the family here, when that's not the normal thing you would do, or all the friends over, or let's go out to this fancy restaurant to eat because you're home and it's so exciting. And they're thinking, I just want your homemade lasagna. Like, I just want it to feel normal. So that's one that I had to fight. I found myself naturally wanting to make it a celebration when all she wanted was just normalcy.
Yeah. And to understand, they're going to want to go see their friends that are at other schools. So when they come home, don't think you're going to spend 24/7 with them and have all these plans of all these fun things you're going to do. No, they're going to want to see their friends. And so being flexible with that.
Yes.
Yeah. Another one was if your kid is moving out and you want to change their room into your office or a workout room or whatever, it's your house. You can do whatever you want to. Just let your kid know before you do it. Because one girl was talking about how she came home and her mom had turned her bedroom into the office, and she came home early. Like, she just wanted to go home one weekend and she was going to surprise her mom, and she got home and her mom wasn't there, and she went to throw her stuff in her bedroom and her bed was gone, and it was her mom's office.
Aww.
And she felt so sad. And I was like, oh, good tip. Like, keep them in the loop with changes that are happening at home. And then one other one came from this weekend. One of the girls that we met up with as a college student, she said, my family is now taking trips without me, and it makes me feel left out. And I was like, oh, note to self, because you will be taking trips without your students sometime. It's just because they're not there. They're going to be taking trips without you too.
Exactly. Having those conversations and talking about them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So really what that means is not because you're not having them part of that trip acting like it doesn't matter to them, or that they're not a part of the family still. I mean, just think about if you're still talking about all these things.
Yes.
Then they feel like they're still a part of it, even though they're not going to be there. And of course, they may be sad that they're not going to be at the beach with you, but yet they understand. But it's not like your little secret life that you're living without them.
Right. And you can invite them, knowing they couldn't come. But
right. Or maybe they wouldn't want to because they'd rather be at school with their friends.
Right. Yes.
Right.
So those were some of the tips for the transition, though, that I thought that really helped us a ton. Really were helpful. But I think for the student too, and I'm sure our girls would jump on here and give you a list of 20 other things that maybe we should have done or that we did do that we didn't talk about. But can you think of anything else for helping the student transition?
I think it's just not being obsessed with making sure that everything is going to be perfect. I mean, like they may forget dryer sheets. I mean, but then they go get dryer sheets. They start learning how to be self-sufficient. Yes. That's really what college is about. They start learning how to figure things out on their own. So as moms, we're so used to caring for these little people for so long and doing all these things that we may even get obsessed about making sure that we're not going to be there with them. So we have to make sure that we are involved with all of the things of getting them ready. And I think some of the stuff is just them getting there and it becoming trial and error of the things that they need and the things that they don't need. You know, one of the things I didn't send with Annalise was, I think maybe she had some Tylenol or ibuprofen, but, you know, that first allergy season that hit, like she didn't have allergy medication, but she was very capable of going to the store and buying some Sudafed or whatever herself, some Zyrtec. So, but I can see how people get obsessive about making sure they have all the things, which frankly, those little dorm rooms, they can't hold all the things.
Right.
We don't have to do that. We need to know that, what do they need? They need clean underpants. They need some, they need some clothes. They need sharpened pencils. Like there's certain things we know, but all the little things, they're going to figure it out. Like
they will.
This is what we've done. We've raised them to, and not making them get obsessed about it either. You know, making them realize that they have the ability to make decisions, figure it out. I mean, even groceries are delivered these days. So if somebody came and said, but they don't have a car, the universities rent cars or there's delivery to their door. So, I mean, what it really comes down to is make them realize it's okay. If you don't have it, then you can figure out how to get it. It's going to be easy. And so that we don't need to put our anxieties on them to then have them be anxious about it.
Yes. We need to keep our emotional state here. So as they're up and down, like we are that steady rock for them to always come back to. So now we're sending our babies off to college. Our babies, they're not babies. We've raised them for this moment. How do we help our mama hearts adjust? How do we adjust as moms?
I think just feeling grateful that you've done this. You've gotten to them to this point. And the ultimate goal is for them to go and find a life for themselves. We do not ultimately, for most parents, don't want their kids living in their basement for the rest of their lives. They really want them to go find a life and create a life of their own. This is it. So I get so weirdly excited about it because I'm thinking to myself, I did this. I got them here. This is awesome. And now you get to fly. And so I've had so many conversations with women in the last couple years about this because, and I'm glad that I've had the opportunity, that God's given me this heart of excitement about it so that I'm able to talk to other women about it. I just ran into somebody yesterday. So it was such a funny situation. There was 2 moms who are sending their daughters off next year for the very first time, having a conversation. And I was nearby and somebody goes, you need to talk to Nicole. She'll talk you through it because I had talked to that mama about it. And really what it comes down to is that this is it. This is so exciting. And yes, it's going to look different from here on out. But I'm excited about how different it's going to look. Like I'm excited about the way, not just that they're going to create their own future, but the newness of that's going to bring into my life. I don't know. I go way out there. I'm hoping they'll find the love of their life. And then they'll create this beautiful family. And then my heart will explode by this beautiful family being created. And I hope they find a profession that lights them up, that they go out and love on more people, serve more people. It's going to expand their influence. They're going to be able to share who they are, who God is in their lives. They only can do that if they go. If they stay in my bubble, here, then they're not going to be able to share who they are out. They have to go. And so my bubble has traveled to here, and it's time for them to go so that they can then love on other people, share God with other people, learn and expand their knowledge about who people are. I mean, again, our bubbles are limited. Like, I want them to go see the world. I want them to know people. I want them to see people. But if I keep them here, they can't go do that.
Right.
So when I think about them leaving for college or leaving, even if it's just, I have a nephew that went into the military. Like, it pumped me up that he was going to go serve our country. And then he was going to meet guys from all over the United States. And then he's going to travel overseas and influence people in other countries. Like, that's amazing. Like, I just get so excited about opportunity to go. I mean, I think that's really what it comes down to. So, but if our hearts are just staying stuck in the place of, my baby is leaving and they're leaving me, and so that's going to leave a hole, instead of seeing the way that our love for them is going to multiply now when they go out, then that's a hard place to stay. And I see where a lot of people get really into a dark place as their children leave. And I don't want that for any woman. No. I want to see people just be like, what has been created now can be multiplied.
Yeah. And I love your excitement around it, around the opportunities for the future and to watch your kids. And this phrase came to me this past week, and it was, if you're thinking I have to let them go, that can sound sad. But if you think I get to watch them grow, that's exciting, because it changes the way you're viewing that process. But this is a change in life. This is a milestone in life. Things will be different now, just like they were different from the time when they were babies or toddlers or the preschool years to the high school years. It will be different. So I think one thing that's important to do is to own your feelings, to say, this is how I'm feeling about it, and not try to repress it, not try to hide it, not try to act like you're not struggling with it, but don't put that on your student that's leaving. Mm-hmm. That's not the person to lean on. You can say, man, I'm going to miss you next year when you're gone, if you're doing something fun that you guys like to do. But
that's very different than, how am I going to live without you being here?
Or like tearing up all the time, crying all the time. I can't believe you're leaving me. You're going to be leaving me. Understand what that's putting on the student, and then find someone else to talk to about it. Find somebody else to lean on. And one thing I would say is, get it out. Like, allow yourself that moment to cry. Mm-hmm. And I had never done that. I had never had somebody tell me to do that. But it was the Sunday before McKenna was leaving for school. And I walked into her room to tell her that I had made something for breakfast, like cinnamon rolls or something. They were on the oven, because I had to come pick my car up. It was actually at your house. So I had to pick my car up early for church. And I walked into her room, and all of her clothes were on the bed. And I had been so excited about the opportunities and where she was going and all of that. But when I saw them on her bed, like, my heart was in my throat. It was one of those moments. And I was like, there's food on the sink, or food on the stove or whatever. Like, I walked out and I was like, oh my gosh, like, there are a lot of emotions here. And fortunately, I got to drive by myself to church, and I had a little bit of a teary moment, but I thought, I just don't want to see anybody. I don't want anybody to ask me. run into people going into church. I was like, oh, no, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it because I was trying to hold it in.
Mm-hmm.
But then I got in the car to come home and I was all by myself because we were in 2 vehicles and I had to stay a little bit later for something. And this song came on to my mind. I don't know if it came on my phone because we had been listening to it or if I chose to play it, but this might sound cheesy, but it was the song Slipping Through My Fingers from the Mamma Mia soundtrack. And we love Mamma Mia and we love that soundtrack. And I just allowed myself to cry to that song. And like, I'm getting teary-eyed now and I'm not even sad about it. But like in that moment, I just cried and I was all by myself and I could let it all out. And it was like this guttural ache. And I had to pull over twice because I was crying so hard. I couldn't see. And it's like a 10-minute drive from church. And I got home and they were like, Mom, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm going to be totally fine. But I just really let all my emotions out on the way home from church. That was the last time. Like, I didn't try to hold it in. I just let it out. And I said, just know I might get a little weepy again today. But we are going to celebrate you big time, and it is going to be so fun when we move you in. And that's what it was. Like, I never did cry again. I never did feel that sadness. But, or not even sadness, like that something's changing and it's never going to be the same again.
Yes.
But I will tell everybody this too. The dreading it is far worse than the living it. Like, you think it's going to be
good. It's so true.
You think it's going to be so bad living it. It's not. Like, the excitement and the joy really comes in on the other side of that. So it's really the dread of it that's worse than the living it. So know that too, Mama.
Yeah.
Or dads too.
Yes.
Yeah. So any other tips for moms?
Talk to your girlfriends about it. I mean, I love the fact that you mentioned that holding it in is a mistake because it multiplies when you and when you just talk to people. Not every person though. I mean, because I think that's okay. So the reason I said that is because also, you know how sometimes when we obsess about something, we talk about it over and over and over and over again.
You need to be with a healthy community.
You need to find your healthy people, and then you need to have these conversations and truly say, here are my fears. Here's what I need. Here's what I need for you to be praying for.
Yeah.
So in those things, you also can realize calling your fears for what they are. You know, it's not necessarily that what's going to happen. Sometimes it's even irrational things.
Right.
We have irrational fears. So if we just keep those inside of us and worry about them, then that just snowballs. So here are my fears. Here's where I'm at. And then letting somebody speak into that and then also asking them to pray for it.
Yeah. And you know, that Sunday too, I even told McKenna, I was like, I am really sorry. I'm tearing up over this right now. I will be totally good whenever we move you in. I just had this big cry coming home. And she was like, Mom, I'm okay if you cry a little bit. If you weren't sad at all that I was leaving, that would make me feel bad. And I was like, oh, okay, good. So I really think opening the lines of communication and not being afraid to say, I'm sorry, or this is like what I'm thinking right now or feeling, or how do you want this to be? Like, having that open line of communication is super important.
Yeah, I'm so glad we're having this conversation because we have one gone and now we're going to be walking into that again, which is so exciting.
It is. It really is. And it's fun with the second one because it's a little bit different in that you're not trying to figure everything out.
Yes.
And so you go in knowing a little bit more about what they're going to need and how to prepare them. And so we both have more, though, coming after that second one, too.
We do.
So, yes, I hope that this was helpful. I hope that it gave you some ideas and things to think about and conversations to have with your kids. And if you have any other transition tips for students or moms, pass those along. Just drop those in the I guess show notes. No, you can't drop them in the show notes.
The comments
The
from the show.
comments. Yeah, in the comments. There you go. And other people are going to find great value in that. This might be an ongoing conversation that we could have, like a running commentary where people are giving suggestions of what helped them. So,
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. If you want to learn more about what Nicole and I do at Live Your Design, you can go to liveyourdesign.life and check out our coaching opportunities that we have and some interesting things about us.